The dark side of horology is here. The Rolex Submariner became the most desired and the most depressing watch all time, and I gathered 5 crucial points to sustain this sentence. So without further blah blah, let's jump into the action. I always wanted to make this video, and I think it will be welcomed by those who possibly want to purchase a pre-owned Rolex or want to understand better the real phenomenon that is happening with the brand. Number 1. The Rolex Submariner became a currency item. Hold on, let me add a drama song. It is sad but true. The brand unfortunately got stained in time because Rolex succeeded to transform itself from watchmaking to a currency item. It is like Bitcoin. People are interested to buy a sports line Rolex because it offers the assurance of not losing money, and more because the brand became so hyped. The chance to sell the watch very fast for profit is very likely. And that made room for a new sport in horology, the flippers or the smugglers that have strong connections and relationships with the ADs, where they buy at retail prices and sell at the grey market prices. And believe me, this thing works. I personally seen with my own eyes a guy who was shipping 4 Rolexes at once, and when I asked the lady there, she said that the guy was shipping often Rolexes. Initially I've seen the Richard Mille on his wrist and I was pretty sure it's fake, but when I seen the shipment I realized that this is a good business. So clearly this is a profitable sport nowadays, and this phenomenon leads to a transactional mindset, a source to make clear profits, and definitely not an attachment for watchmaking. For history of the brand is just pure cash. And this point leads to the next one. Number 2. The Rolex brand became an icon without soul. As I said earlier, because the brand became desirable, having a stable or a growing trend in value for the sports models, the Submariner is firstly a good item to make profit, an amount of money on the wrist, or a reason to show your status. And in the 4th place, it is a good watch with a great history, but nobody cares today. And this is tied to the next point. Number 3. Who is the persona that wears today a Rolex GMT, a Submariner or a Daytona? In fact, we have 3 personas here. We have the ones that they need to prove their wealth and status, and the capability to influence, to show off and to purchase such pieces because it's a good investment. This persona is addicted to attention in general, and a lot of people are feeding them with endorsements. This phenomenon is called cheerleading. The next persona is the one who is faking his status on social media and among friends, and here I've seen several cases with people that are faking their life, wearing fake Rolexes and a second-hand BMW, hoping to get the attention that they hope for. They make in general all the necessary efforts to be validated and to impress the surrounding persons. And the third persona is the poor watch enthusiast that would like to buy a Rolex for the love of horology. But this persona is sadly absorbed into the phenomenon and somehow perceived as a show-off guy or faking his status. Look at what the social media made me do. They made me buy a Rolex Explorer 2, which is the cost of my car. Actually, I saved this watch with this beautiful orange leather strap from 7 Friends and Watches. The link is in the description. Number 4. Rolex became a good business for social media. And this is the most toxic environment in my opinion, because they contribute to an artificial hype, succeeding to make successful YouTube channels based on a single word, Rolex. And here you don't need me to point them out, they are pretty popular. And from here tons of stories were invented, that the Rolex is the best brand, that the Submariner is the best watch, that the Sea Dweller was the peak of Jacques Cousteau in the Calypso's adventures, which in reality was Omega, that the first GMT watch was the Rolex Master GMT, but in reality was Glycine Airman, and the first Panda being the Paul Newman Daytona, but in reality the first one was a Breitling with quite a few years ahead. So people got intoxicated with over-explained Rolex episodes just for the sake of making views. So if you're interested, this is a social media shortcut that ensures you fast success. Number 5, and the toughest of all, the franken Submariners are there in the market, ready for your money. So guys, because the points from 1 to 4 are perfectly feasible, some creative people said, why not sell franken Submariners made out of leftover pieces as pre-owned? And this is actually serious. There are watchmakers that are literally receiving boxes with Rolex used parts, and they assembly movements out of them and send them back ready to be housed in cases and sold as pre-owned. This is actually from a trusted source. So there are big chances today to buy a Submariner that has inside parts from Datejust Explorers or other models. But the sad part is that not every watchmaker will know to tell the difference. So just to summarize what I pointed out earlier, because of social media is getting toxic with this Rolex content, and then the influencers that show you how cool is their life, you will end up buying a sub with box and papers, new or in good condition, but you will probably end up not wearing it because the usage and the scratches will decrease the value of it and you want profit. And if you'll buy a pre-owned watch, you will pay a substantial amount of money to the intermediary guy and directly help him to buy another Richard Mille. And then the watch lovers will make fun of you because you've entered the Rolex hype, and they will be interested to know how much extra money you paid for it. Or because they know you better, they will laugh because you bought a fake Submariner just to fake your status. However, you should be equally careful how much you show off with your new piece, because there are a lot of cases when people got robbed in the streets, vacations, or end up with the house broken by thieves. And if you're lucky to pass all these points, you have to be sure that your pre-owned Grail Rolex is not made out of service leftovers or used parts, just because there is no such thing as "I just got a good deal on a Rolex without box and papers, recently serviced." Guys, I don't know about you, but to me it feels incredibly painful to experience a purchase of a Rolex Submariner. So as a good practice, what I recommend you sincerely from all my heart, do not encourage the phenomenon anymore, do not endorse those fake influencers that own Rolexes because they live based on your attention. And also do not encourage the phenomenon used Rolex without box and papers serviced recently for a good price, because that watch is either stolen or a franken Rolex, and if you'll buy it stolen, at some point you will want to service it, and if you'll send it to a service at a serious watchmaker, they will retain your watch for that reason. It is a common practice because they have access to the database of stolen watches. And Chrono24 cannot tell you if a watch is fake or not because they don't have access to the mechanism. Currently, if you search on Chrono24 for Rolex Submariner, you will find 6,906 results. Out of this amount, 4,644 are with box and papers. And for the rest of them, don't make the mistake to think that 2,200 people lost their box and papers knowing how valuable are these items to the watch. So as a good practice, always buy a Rolex with box and papers and matching series, and make sure that the record is clear. You will pay some extra money, but those money will ensure you mental peace and the fact that you bought a genuine watch. And if you want to sell it, trust me, you will be prioritized by a client for purchase. But an important point that you might consider, there is life after Rolex. There are tons of other brands with amazing quality, great heritage and stories to tell. Companions that might complete your standards, your dress code, or your personality. So guys, I think I should stop. I shouted enough for one day, but I'm curious to see what's your view on this Rolex bubble. Please let me know in the comments down below. And if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing for future updates. And until next time, be brave, but stay safe.